Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of RotoBaller Radio's Waiver Wire series. I'm your host, Anthony Aniano, as we're here with the Week 2 Waiver Wire for the wide receiver position. Guys, if you want to win big in 2012 with RotoBaller.com, NFL's Premium Pass. Are you ready to dominate your season-long and DFS leagues? RotoBaller NFL's Premium Pass and Draft Kit includes rankings, projections, and cheat sheets for all formats. Get exclusive DFS tools, lineup optimizers, and premium Slack chats. Join in on the winning and take 50% off any premium pass. Use my promo code ACES for an additional 10% discount. Visit rotoballer.com/radio, sign up today, and start rotoballing like a boss. All right, everybody. Time to talk the wide receiver position. Hopefully you already checked out the running backs. You maybe watched the quarterbacks and tight end show. But now we got to talk wide receivers. A deep week of wide receiver waiver wire ad. Now, a couple of injuries. Jerry Jeudy, a high ankle sprain is the report. Michael Gallup's going to be out for a few weeks. Curtis Samuel was a late addition to injured reserve. So you might be looking for wide receiver depth this week. And there were some players to mention. First up, Christian Kirk. It wasn't anybody else on that Arizona wide receiver core other than DeAndre Hopkins, who was a favorite of Kyler Murray. It wasn't A.J. Green. Christian Kirk was second on the team in targets, in receiving yards, and receptions. 13% rostered, grossly under-rostered. 5 targets on 5 receptions, 70 yards, and those 2 touchdowns. Now, it's very important to mention at this point in the season, look at the targets. Targets are important. Wide receivers come and go, but targets last a lifetime. Christian Kirk, 5 targets, like we said, second only to D-Hop in that Arizona offense. Minnesota next week gave up points to that Bengals offense. Christian Kirk finishing with a 24 fantasy point week 1. Nice add at only 13% rostered. Up next, and I feel like we do this every year, but I got to mention Zach Pascal at 1% rostered. Okay, Zach Pascal led all wide receivers on the Colts team in targets, receptions, and yards. Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines, the duo in the backfield, led the team, but in terms of wide receivers, Zach Pascal was number 1. More than Paris Campbell, more than Michael Pittman. Pittman went 4 targets, 3 receptions, 29 yards. Zach Pascal, 1% rostered, 20.3 fantasy points, the 2 touchdowns on 4 catches, 43 yards, and 5 targets. They face a tough Ram defense next week. But nonetheless, my advice, though, Pascal, we've done this in the past, haven't we? We add him, and then 2 weeks later, we're dropping him. So be careful with Pascal. Okay, but right now, he's a favorite of Carson Wentz. One of my favorite ads, and I mentioned him before week 1, I'll mention him again, Nelson Agholor of the New England Patriots. 32% rostered. And what does Nelson Agholor do? He makes big plays. 5 catches, 72 yards. Tough to ignore. Remember, I said it last week, over 18 yards per catch last season. And here he is again, putting up big numbers. 7 targets, gets in the end zone, 18.2 fantasy points. And I'm a little excited about Nelson Agholor going against that Jets secondary in week 2. Second to Jacoby Myers on the Pats in targets. I expect that to continue. And Nelson Agholor, we know, has the ability to make the big play. To me, he's the modern day Deshaun Jackson, formerly of the Eagles and other teams around the league. Sterling Shepard of the New York Giants, 38% rostered and a target favorite of Daniel Jones. Now, full disclosure, as I'm wearing the hat, understand, I get it. The Giants offense looked terrible. There's just no denying that. That offensive line is bad. Daniel Jones did not look good again. He gets hit way too much. But when he did get rid of it, Sterling Shepard was targeted 9 times, 7 receptions, 113 yards, and a touchdown. He was grossly undervalued throughout the preseason and drafts. Faces Washington next week, 24 fantasy points. He'll remain a target favorite of Daniel Jones, especially with Evan Ingram out, 38% rostered. Jalen Reagor of the Philadelphia Eagles, that Eagle offense looked terrific. Gainwell was involved. Sanders was involved. Devonta Smith was involved. Goddard got a touchdown, and so did second-year player Jalen Reagor. 21% rostered. Let's jack that number up. 6 targets. Second to Devonta Smith in targets on the team. 6 receptions, 49 yards. Gets in the end zone. 16.9 fantasy points against San Francisco next week. That Detroit and Jared Goff did put up numbers against, especially in the second half. Cole Beasley, I'm surprised he's even on the list this week because he's only 45% rostered. My thought process is people didn't draft him because maybe they thought he wasn't going to make the team because of his stance on the vaccine. Well, he did make the team, and he remains a favorite of Josh Allen. 13 targets. Stephon Diggs had 14. 8 catches, 60 yards. Cole Beasley is a PPR him to death wide receiver. Doesn't get in the end zone, but 8 for 60. That's a sweet 14 fantasy points as your wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 4 at Miami next week, which gave up targets to Jacoby Myers and to Nelson Aguilar. Okay, Josh Allen will be able to move the ball. Diggs and Beasley should be able to do some damage. 45% rostered. Another veteran who was grossly on the roster, another veteran that surprised me, is Devonta Parker of Miami. 39% rostered. Led the team, the Miami Dolphins, in targets with 7, in yards with 81, 4 for 81 total on the day, 12.1 fantasy points against Buffalo. That was upset, in my opinion, by the Pittsburgh Steelers. A veteran like Parker, I know that wide receiver core is crowded. Will Fuller's coming, Jalen Waddle, okay, and the rookies they brought in, but nonetheless, Devonta Parker still the veteran and still led the team in targets week 1. Again, I say it all the time, look for targets this early in the season, okay? Up next, KJ Osborne. He's my sleeper. He's my $1 fab bid. KJ Osborne of the Minnesota Vikings. I can't ignore 9 targets. I just can't. And that targets, Adam Thielen had 10, Justin Jefferson and Osborne tied with 9. Okay, if Minnesota's going to be able to use 3 wide receivers, Osborne is the number 3 there. 9 targets, 7 receptions for 76 yards, 14.6 PPR points. Tough to ignore against that Arizona secondary. And finally, the Jerry Jeudy injury is a situation, a high ankle sprain. Cortland Sutton was not overly involved by Denver week 1 against the Giants. KJ Hamler and Tim Patrick. Hamler 2% rostered, last season's second-round pick. And Patrick 1% rostered, was one of the team's leading receivers last year. They have Jacksonville next week, which Houston's pass game tore up. Both players, Hamler and Patrick, had 4 targets. The difference being Hamler had more receiving yards on 3 receptions, 41 of the yards. Patrick 39 yards on 4 receptions. Patrick, though, gets in the end zone. Again, Osborne, Hamler, Patrick. Put them in as $1 bids, especially with Jeudy out for Denver, if you don't get the big guns here at the wide receiver position. If I'm ranking them in a PPR format, Christian Kirk is number 1. Nelson Aguilar is 2. Beasley is 3. Shepard is 4. Aguilar is 5. Zach Pascal, is 5. That's terrific depth. And then you got Reagor, and then the $1 bids of Osborne, Hamler, and Tim Patrick. Okay, a lot of wide receiver depth after the first week of season. A lot of targets available. And look at targets, guys. Don't worry about chasing touchdowns. Don't even worry about chasing yards yet. Chase targets. Okay, that's where long-term gain is made off the waiver wire. All right, everybody, if you haven't already, make sure you check out the running back and quarterback tight end show, courtesy of me and RotoBaller Radio. All right, check out later on in the week the sleeper and ADP value show with Scott Engel and I. And make sure you stay right here on the RotoBaller YouTube channel for all sorts of great content throughout the week, getting you ready for week 2 of your fantasy football season. I'm Anthony Aniano. Follow me on Twitter at @AnianoFantasy. And we'll see you next time. Stay smart, stay safe. Have a good one, folks.